Okay, do I have a motion to accept the minutes from
Which-
11/1?
11/1.
The October 4th?
October, it was the first, we had that last meeting.
Did we do the October 4th? I'm sorry, I'm late. It's just-
No.
Yeah, there's two sets of minutes.
You said October, November, our last meeting was the one that we, is on the floor right now to approve.
Well, we're doing two sets of minutes.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So
October
we
4th,
haven't done the
November.
October 4th yet.
No, no,
Yeah. I don't think we approved October 4th last.
no, we didn't.
No.
We did not.
Right.
Okay, I was just-
Two sets to.
Yes.
So we're doing November, and then we're gonna do.
I just
October.
brought up November 1st, we'll do that first. Then we can go back to
So if
October.
you approve November, you really can't object to October.
Just a check. I had no comments on
The
it.
motion to accept the minutes from November 1st?
Motion, second, yeah.
Okay, and did everyone get a chance to look at the October 4th?
Yeah, the only
Yeah.
change I had on the October one was, when we were talking about the South River, it was on the third page top, it's the South River dredging, not jetty, and so wouldn't make sense.
You're-
I made a note for you on that anyway.
And I had one comment about, Howie was talking about,
This is October,
yeah,
okay?
in the paragraph, it starts with Howie Kreuzberg said, a lot of communities do not have one, and it's heavy lifting, not life to create. It says heavy life to create.
Yeah, I didn't do these minutes,
Okay.
for the record.
I can correct them though.
Yeah.
I can correct them though.
Anything else on either sets of those? 2 minutes? Okay, motion to accept. The
So
two?
moved.
Second.
Second.
Want to keep?
Okay, opening remarks, I don't know if everybody's realized, I'm sure everybody probably does. One of the fishermen in the harbor, Fred Dockney, passed away. That's why I think Keith is probably at the,
Yes.
Yeah, he was in behind.
The wake
he was
right now.
In line behind me, so.
someone told me Fred was on the waterways at one time? I think Fred might have told me he was on every commission at one time.
Could have been, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Long time.
colorful guy. We presented our letter last night to the selectmen regarding the South River and the dredging. And obviously, you know, it's not something that we could correct last night, but we're gonna start working on it. Kind of putting that to the front burner and see if something can be done about it. Sean, did you get any?
Well, you had Nancy there, for those that didn't see it, filled in any blanks, any questions that we had.
Yep.
And this has been, as everyone knows, on the docket for quite a few years. And it seems that when he came in, he inherited it a few years ago, and same with Nancy. So, you know, we'll do everything we can, you know, we will, I think Howie mentioned, you know, I guess if it's an economical advantage or, you know, like places like New Bedford can benefit greater than Scituate, but if we put not a spin, but if we put a focus on, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but safety and all that stuff, then
You can pull a chair up.
maybe we could go to, you know, top of, you know, not the topics, but get things rolling along a little quicker.
So the last thing that,
Trying to think, Nancy, what else she said, you know, they're still analyzing material, so they, where they can put it, possibly do more Scituate or Palmar. Yeah, they'll take it, so, you know, probably future required.
Randy, I have a question on, and it didn't come up last night, but we haven't got an update on what the status actually of the easement process is. Do you have any
That
idea?
particular
Yeah,
job or
Right.
spot,
yeah,
well, we have permission by the Air Force, and if
Right.
we were to put it in front of, I can only speak on other projects,
Yeah.
you know, we need easements, everybody in a row.
Right.
Rather than just a few here
Exactly.
and then a few didn't,
Exactly,
you know,
yeah,
so. I think if that, I'm under the impression if that was the case, it might just go to the Air Force, or it might just go
Right.
to another spot where they can just dispose of
sounds
it.
good. But do we have any idea, I mean, it's been about 2 months, I think.
longer than
Do we
that,
have
I don't know
other,
what to say.
what's that?
they go back to the summertime on the easements. Trying to obtain the
Well,
permission.
it was in the fall, it was in it might have been September that she finally got the wording approved from our legal counsel for the actual easement, I think. Maybe I'm off a month or two, does anybody know?
I went to a meeting in August down in Hummerock
Yeah.
about it, with the
Yeah.
property owners.
Okay, so that might have been the meeting that, July might have been the approval of the actual wording, and then it was sent to all the residents, and now she's been meeting with the residents, I guess, right?
Fran, don't confuse that, with the project on Central Ave, or maybe it can be, lumped into one, I honestly don't know, but there's the project to raise Central Ave, the grade, which has nothing to do with this dredging, but it's easements that she needs to get.
So there are two sets of easements?
I honestly.
The only one I'm aware of is the one that I went to a meeting with Nancy Durfee and Mara. It was back in August, and that was in regards to allowing the people, having the people give permission so we could go over their land for the dredging.
It's actually
spoils.
to put the spoils on
Right.
what they say is their property.
Right,
Right.
that's the one I'm talking about.
That's what that's, I don't know if that's what that meeting, but
And
that's
that's
what.
the easement I'm talking about. Are there 50, 100 residents? We have no
Nancy
idea.
would know, I
Okay.
can just,
Yeah.
tell you the area.
I mean,
We can try to get an update from her for
Yeah.
next meeting, so, I'll email.
just
her.
out of curiosity, and again, the backup is the Air Force now, I think.
Right.
And I think on this project, we need to clearly split it between, and I'll call it the first area and then the area to the bridge. Because, and I've traveled it, I don't know, let's say 5 times or so this summer, and if you're there anywhere near, the low tide, you almost can't get out or in that first S curve, right?
It's from the number 9 in the NR buoy up to Trowens Island, number 2 is the area that
Right.
is
We're looking to do that.
yeah, that's
We're
the
The
looking-
area.
emergency area.
We're looking to select whatever area,
Yeah,
if it's 100 feet or 500 feet
Yeah.
by 50 feet across,
right,
just do whatever has to be done,
right. And so
like critically.
critical,
Has to be
like
done.
maybe this spring,
That's,
hopefully.
that's it.
Yeah, and the funding of that.
Well, it's still, you still have permits, so we still don't have the permits.
Right.
We're trying to get the permits, and then you have a time of year restriction,
Right,
so you can't just
do it, yeah.
do it,
Yeah,
And then you have to have money.
then you have to have the
right,
funding.
so it's 2 issues, so it's,
Yes.
so it doesn't,
It's really
it's
3.
not gonna happen this.
It's cash,
Doubtful.
it's permits, and then it's a place to dispose.
So if it was a true emergency, like it was almost closed, low tide, right?
You still have to do permits, you still have to get cash, and you still have to have a place to dispose of it.
Yeah, that's the situation that
There is
Green
no-
Harbor has. Almost every spring is that they're at low tide.
Tough time.
They have to go down there and get emergency dredge, but they have permits and,
The permits are in place, they're comprehensive permits, and they're in place, and once they're done, they're done. You
So-
just have to update them,
Let's
the
say
green
after
size.
this winter, it gets so bad that it almost becomes unnavigable. Let's just say that happened. I don't know, what, and that
You
would be. a
still
tr-
have to get permits.
Yeah.
You
So
s-
nobody will be able to get in and out during low tide.
You still have to get, it has to be permitted, you can't
Mm.
you just go down there and dredge.
Excuse me, Howie, you had something on that, didn't you?
Well, not yet, keep going, permitting. When will we have the permits?
CLE's been working on them.
Let me ask again, when will we have the permits?
I was led.
You're
to
asking
believe-
the
It
wrong,
has to have an end, we must know. when-
I was led to believe that we'd have them by the spring.
yeah, I think that's the
Which
last,
year?
that's the last of 18. That's the
2018.
last update Nancy gave to us.
So we paid CLE like $50,000 a year ago. We don't know when we're gonna get permits. Seems a little strange.
well, part of it's got to do with, you have to have a location to put the spoils. So there's certain things that have to be in place. They don't just say, here, you have a permit, and then you find the location. On the permit, it says where the materials will go.
Yeah, but like Nancy said last night, it sounded to me, Sean, stop me if I'm not correct. If worse came to worse, we might be able to put the spoils on the coast of the
Air Force.
Air Force. Right.
Correct.
So here we have this,
But we still have to have, she's got, we have to gift the spoils to the Air Force, and there's a gift letter that's being worked on.
And that's if the.
They will accept them, but that, they have to, it has to be,
Don't they?
no, they are compatible,
Oh, they
but
are
they're,
compatible.
it's got to do with the gift letter.
Okay.
Yeah, the sediment was compatible to Humrock and
And that
down
would
that
be part of the
area.
permit as well.
It was the North Scituate area, I think, which she said there was might be a problem with it.
Although, yeah, she thinks,
Almost too fine.
Too fine, right.
Well,
Yeah,
it's too high, it needed some further testing.
Chemical
Correct,
testing.
chemical testing to make sure there's not,
So even if we had the
Problems.
permits right now, let's say they were done, right? As of last night, Nancy comes, oh, we got the permits. The question is, could it be done this spring?
Can
It
you only
would be-
dredge like in December because of the?
there's time of year restriction because of winter flounder.
which is up to February 1st.
I mean, we shouldn't talk in hypotheticals, it
No.
doesn't do, you know,
Right.
there's no
Raising
reason,
our-
you just,
Yeah.
you know, we're just
Yeah,
talking
it's
to
just
talk
gonna
at
be a really
that point.
unsafe situation. This, I mean, you know, it's gonna be really ugly, this.
So we should be able to get a date as when we expect to have permits, and we ought to be able to zero in on that. At least some alternatives, whether it's the coast, the Air Force, or through easements, or your Scituate, or wherever, we ought to be able to start to hone in on this, while we have this situation. And while I have the floor, let me just say, today I spent some time up on Beacon Hill at the voting caucus, and this was a topic of discussion, and I wouldn't move a lot of funding of some inscription.
So other than all the reasons they gave us last night, the commerce and all that, and there's something else?
The Baker administration wants a 400% increase in dredging for municipalities.
Right.
A. B is that there's a couple of bills out there to get this done, particularly navigable waterways, which this is, the mouth of the river I'm talking about, not the whole road. So, this is just a quick snapshot, because this only happened this afternoon, but there might be some alternatives that we
That's what they were talking about this summer at the meeting we went to in Plymouth.
Right, the government, they had a meeting
But,
about that.
We'd be leading with in a position of strength, we could say, permits are done, boom, boom, we're ready to go. It just seems like this goes on and on and on. Well, to David's point, the waterway is not navigable at some point, then what do we do?
Who has the most experience with permits, Stephen?
CLE?
I mean, what would happen if we, aside from funding, if we were able to get all the permits together to do this with an actual place to dump it, and have everything, in other words, submit a permit with the possibility?
It has to be in the permit where the material's going.
Well, if the Air Force is gonna give us the option of using that,
Yeah.
can we do a permit with the appropriate people to dump on the Air Force? And then just decide not to use it if we get a better situation later?
But then you're gonna pay again to re-permit.
How much are we gonna pay? I mean, what?
You're gonna pay to re-permit again.
Yeah, the whole thing.
The whole thing's gonna be,
Yeah, let's find out from Nancy where, what the status of the permits is, and then where she has, like, targeted for dumping, whether it's the Air Force, whether she has enough easements on the beach to dump, or whether it's, North Situate, or whether
We
it's
talked
offshore,
about having-
because I think it was offshore was a possibility. It seems like a waste.
Well, the reason I bring that up is because the last thing that Tony mentioned at the very end was the waterways are gonna have to find a way to somewhat deal with this safety issue in the public for next summer. So, I mean, it's kind of, in a way, thrown back on us, but I mean, it's a part of what we're doing anyway. But if there's something we could do to put the permits in place to get it ready, maybe that's what we ought to do. And Nancy Durfee obviously is a piece of the puzzle. We probably should have had her come here tonight.
Nancy was in my office this morning, and she is working with CLE to get permitting completed.
Okay. So we'll
It
get with
takes
Nancy.
time, it just, permits,
Does
Don't
anybody
happen
know-
overnight.
So again, hypothetically, let's say next month the permits come in. Does safety supersede the dredge timing issue with the flounder?
no.
Or no?
No, nothing
Nothing
supersedes flounder.
supersedes
The flounder.
the Department of Marine Fisheries.
That's February 1?
Hmm?
Winter flounder season ends February 1?
No, there's
The
a
dredging
time,
season is,
the
it's kind of
dredging
like
season is a
it's kind of
very
like an
short
October to
season.
February type of thing.
Got it.
It's a very small
That's it, it's a
window.
very small window.
So it's not happening this year?
Right.
All the effort.
The short answer is you
don't dredge in the summer.
Okay. Not in the summer, I was thinking about March or something.
No.
Yeah, all right, that's it.
Okay, we neglected to put this on the agenda last time, the election of Waterways chairperson. So I guess we're gonna have to do that again. It's formally been posted. Anyone?
Can I make a suggestion of putting that at the end, so
Okay,
we just don't have we're not changing, if we do change horses, we don't change them midstream
sure.
of a
Move that-
meeting?
Move that to the
So we
end.
can just postpone that until the end,
Very good.
right before adjournment though, not after adjournment.
Okay. Stephen, Harbor Masters report?
Our master's report. Cole Parkway Marina has been broken down. It has been, the fingers were put into the parking lot. The docks were moved over the past 3 days across the way. They're chained up out here. We moved the mains over, dropped the gangway around noon time today. So that's where we steered with Cole Parkway. I told you last time I was here that the de-icers, we received them. They're in my office. Progress on the test piles. It's my understanding that the test piles went very well. The engineer was very happy with all the penetrations and how deep he was able to go in all areas. There was an area that was a little bit more dense than the other, but that material actually worked out very well, so he doesn't see any issues with any of the pile, being able to drive them. Timetable, we're still on schedule for this year.
That 50% point that he had mentioned.
What about it?
What does that mean?
He mentioned that they were almost there last week when they were down there.
I don't know, I wasn't with him last week, so I don't
Okay.
know.
I mean, there's a 50% point where he can tell us whether he's on schedule, on the money or whatever?
He is on schedule, we are on schedule. We're on schedule. The Department of Marine Fisheries sent us the letter, they're happy with what we're doing. The Army Corps and Mass DEP were on site, I told you about a month and a half or 2 months ago. Army Corps, we don't have to do a 408 review.
So what were the permits that he said they had just submitted last week?
That is to Army Corps and to DEP.
Okay.
They've done conservation, Steve?
They went through conservation last week. Conservation's fine with everything that's going on. So we're moving forward right on schedule. The next bullet point you have is Cole Parkway and winter floats. They're here. Look out the window. They're floating, they're chained up. Everything went well.
So when will de-icers be deployed?
Probably when we start to get some real cold weather.
So the
I'm not gonna-
electricity is all in place and all that?
Lights are all on.
And that's all you need to do is plug them in?
Plugging them in.
That's no special?
Plugging them, no, they're going right into the 30 amp,
Yeah.
right into those houses
Yeah.
that are out there.
Yeah.
So that's not a big
And
deal.
we'll be deploying those ourselves, or you and your guys?
I will,
Okay,
yes, myself and Mike Pierce. So we'll be waiting on those until the weather starts getting colder and we, start to see the weather really turn, then we'll put them out there.
Yeah.
Are
No
you
reason-
rigging them beforehand, or are you gonna just?
They're just tied with polypropylene line, you just tie them off, so we'll tie them off to the rails and to cleats. So pretty much everything's ready to go, all we have to do is cut the cable ties and we tie them off, the rails where you pull the pins to move the docks side to side, or we put them out on the cleats. So they're going fairly easily, and then the recommendation was to cable tie the power cord up one of the polypropylene lines so it doesn't get chewed up by the propeller.
How many are you putting out?
51.
Is that how many we have total?
How many we have? Yes.
That should be more than sufficient.
Did you leave all the pedestals open? So you just plug them right in there?
They'll be plugged into the pedestals, and then as we need them, as the temperature rises or falls, we'll go out and operate them like a dimmer. You want 20% on them, put on 20%.
You mean 20% of them?
Of them. And then
It's either on or off, right?
on or off.
Okay.
And then you just keep
Yeah.
adding more and more on as the weather starts to get
Big
colder.
experiment,
colder.
should be great.
Mm-hmm.
It'll work.
Seems to, so we'll see. Steve, what's the next step in the, you know, you say we're on schedule, what's the next step in the
We're
filing?
waiting for response from the Army Corps on their permit
Yeah,
and Mass DEP, Chapter 91.
and so let's say you get that in the next couple of weeks, probably, by Christmas maybe? What, no,
No, it takes a little longer than that.
right,
That-
so,
The state and federal government they don't move fast.
I understand that, but I'm thinking, so when they respond,
Yes,
let's say it's the end of January,
yes,
so then
we're
February
gonna
1st,
move-
we'll be
we'll
ready
just-
to
we're
send
gonna-
out bids?
yeah,
So
we're working on.
the design will be done 90%.
Correct.
The mid of January, I
Yes,
believe,
like that.
5
I
weeks?
think that's what he had said.
And then 100% by the last week of January?
Yeah, he had to do all these test probes, and
Right.
we did do additional, we drove additional test piles over on this side as well, because as part of my capital plan, I added pilings to replace the ones over here, so that we have the right
Taller
height.
ones.
Right.
And we know that they're in deep enough, because
We
these
weren't
weren't
sure.
really
Engineered,
engineered
Yeah.
for the project.
That's for next
So
year.
we're gonna try to kill two birds with one stone. Instead of paying $15,000 to have them come back, we spent $3,500 and had the job done. So it would have cost $15,000 to mobilize them and another $3,500 to do the test piles. I just opted to pay for the,
And as far as
That's
putting
nice.
those piles here, could that get done with the project?
depends on when the project's done.
Right.
But on that, everything's going very well.
So have you seen any updated design documents than
I
from the last time we met, or when the engineer was presenting to us?
I have not. I saw, and I think he had it here, the reconfiguration zone, the layout, and it's based on the existing permit. So,
So when we get to 90%, can you distribute that to us?
yeah, once I have something to distribute, whatever he provides me, more than happy to.
Thank you.
So the RFP itself, really the permitting is not the gating item, it's more the design by the consulting company, correct? In order for you to release the RFP? Or at least have the RFP written,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So is that enough time for you to be able to release an RFP like the first or second week of February?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
That's the way he makes it sound, so.
Well, hopefully,
We are gonna
hopefully
continue.
DS is on his game.
We are gonna, I've worked with some engineers, and these guys seem to know what they're doing.
Great.
I'm very happy with them.
And he's gonna put the RFP together?
He
or
will
we
put
do
the
that?
RFP
Yeah.
together, we don't do that.
And does he help us analyze the results or the feedback? Excellent.
Anything else?
Oh, I just, you,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to let everybody know that we got permission from Al Banger to put a code system on the front door to allow 24/7 access at the Maritime Center
That's wonderful.
in the summertime. It happened probably 2 or 3 meetings ago, but I just kept forgetting, with other
great.
things going
And
on.
so how will that work? If this building is closed, that code system doesn't work?
It does work. That's what allows
the
the
bathrooms.
bathrooms, just for the bathrooms.
Just for the
It's gonna open at the outlet.
Okay.
Now, will it be similar to what Mike has, an app with
I
a
don't
Yale
know.
lock type of thing?
I'm not doing, it's gonna be done through facilities. We just got permission, that's all.
Okay. That's great. It's great for the the poor boaters in the maritime area.
And this
Yeah.
building gets closed down January 1st or something?
Again, that's through facilities, and I believe it's January 1st, isn't it, Franny?
Pretty soon.
Isn't that what I said? Because I asked them, and they sent something to you, saying,
Yeah.
whatever the date.
Ordinarily, we might not be here, but it's been warm enough, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But we
so
will
it's
be
a,
here next month.
it's a bonus for the, or not a bonus, but it's,
Yeah, that's good.
I was glad to have the access. Sure you are.
You can walk home if you wish.
It just makes sense.
Yeah. I forget, on the process of getting all the winter sticks up, what's the rule? You can keep your ball in if you wanted to and not take it out or not?
You can keep the mooring buoy in as long as you want,
The ball,
right?
Yeah.
The restriction is on the winter logs.
getting those
They
off
have to be removed in
by the spring, right?
These have to be off
Okay.
by the
Yeah.
15th of May
Yeah.
every
And
year.
they can't go on before.
before the October 15th.
October 15th.
Right. Gotcha.
Come by the office, I'll give you the mooring rules and regulations.
Yeah, I know, I gotta read through them.
They're online as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Wonderful reading.
sure it is.
Okay, old business. The Waterways financial report, have you and Keith had a chance?
We have not met yet. We've been going through it independently, Brian as well. Howie's offered to go. We are setting up a meeting with Nancy to go through and understand some of the questions that came up in our discussions. Stephen, I know you've submitted a budget to
It's right there.
I'd like to have that, to make that part of it, and I'll distribute this to
There you
people.
go.
Thanks a lot. This is Stephen's budget that he submitted to Al, or to the selectmen for
The town,
2019.
I submitted to the
Right.
town administrator and to the Nancy Holt, the
Right,
town
right.
accountant.
This is his 19
Right.
initial request for his budget for starting in July. So we'll compare that with what we have, and Nancy's already given us year-to-date, so I think we have all the information we need.
Good.
But, we'll have questions back and forth after we meet with Nancy as well.
Any possibility of having anything for the next meeting, I
Yeah,
think?
oh yeah. We'll have to, because, do you have a date yet for your meeting with advisory?
No.
Yeah, and they just submitted that last night to the selectmen. It's probably late January, I'm not sure what, I'm guessing that's about your timeframe. I forget, what's our January meeting date?
When they send me the date,
The
there's,
third,
Third,
which is kind of close.
We might wanna
to
talk about
holidays,
that, too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the date for the first Wednesday of January is the 3rd of January.
maybe do it the 10th or something.
We might want to think about putting it off a week. It's kind of close to the New Year's, the holiday
Yeah.
itself.
Nothing's sacred about Wednesdays either,
Right.
so we can do it Thursday or Monday.
Tuesdays actually work better, much better for me.
All right, so the following
Then we'll have it
Tuesday.
on Tuesday.
So, let's talk about that now. Do you want to propose making it Tuesday
Doesn't know what the availability of building.
Yeah, let's
Wait.
just aim for the 10th of January for now.
Yeah, we have,
doesn't work for me.
Leanne has already
Okay, doesn't-
obtained the NOAA facility for the
Identify
3rd.
quorum.
I'll change it to the 10th.
Yeah, I think Wednesdays are not a problem with them, so we shouldn't have a problem changing
Yeah,
that. But we'll leave it tentatively for the 10th.
that doesn't work for me, but anyways.
Yeah, I'll also be out of town on the 10th.
You'll be out?
Yeah.
Okay.
The 9th is great for me. Anyway. So that's all I have to report right now, but
Okay.
not a lot.
And Brian, anything on the management plan?
Yeah, so, I know it's too late to make a correction to November's meetings, minute meetings, but I actually met with Brad Washburn the day after our last meeting. He's more than willing to engage and assist on any rewrite portions or all of the harbor management plan. He'd like to hold off coming to a meeting here until he has a chance to sit down with the new TA, which I believe, Sean, January 1?
Right after the new year.
Right, so I said to him that the initial date of January 3rd would be probably too soon to invite him to our next meeting, so we targeted the February meeting to invite him to our meeting.
And all we're really gonna be doing is not updating us, correct? We're not gonna rewrite it at this point, just update it.
I would think that probably makes the most sense.
Do we need him to update it? Do you think?
He's had experience in harbor management plans. I certainly would like to use him as a resource. His time availability obviously would be.
Okay. The committee that we were trying to get together for the asset and the service consolidation, Dick Eckhouse was going to kind of spearhead it. Dick's been ill, so nothing has happened yet. Aside from a few conversations, informal conversations, we haven't done anything. Hasn't been a meeting call, there hasn't been anything at all. So we will notify people as that comes up and starts again. Stephen, you want to follow up on your capital plan?
If anybody has any questions.
Stephen, have you seen, and I should have had it with me, but the 5-year plan that the town is carrying for waterways? Because there's things on there that may not be important anymore, or the Financial Forecasting Committee and the Capital Planning Committee have formal just projections of capital needs for every department in town. And
Yeah, it's part of my capital plan.
we should reconcile what you need.
I have been. Like, I drop things off as they're not necessary.
Is that a spreadsheet that you have now? or-
No, it's what Nancy sends over.
That's somewhat what you presented to us last time,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
But there were new things on it.
Yeah.
Right, so, and.
It's a
maybe
dynamic document.
It's a dynamic
It-
document, yeah.
Like
So-
the truck has been on,
I
my
understand.
truck has
10
been on
years.
there for,
10 years, yeah.
not 10 years, but for the past 5 years, it gets pushed,
Right,
but it doesn't get dropped off just because it gets pushed out.
right.
It has to stay on there because
Yeah.
it's a 5-year plan.
Mm,
It's like repowering of the new boat.
Yeah,
You have to do that. The police department probably puts on police cars right after they got their old police cars,
Right.
because you have to plan.
but it's on for 5 years from now, that new police car, because they only last 4
Probably
years.
3 years,
3 years,
but-
whatever it is, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like my motors don't last 5 years, we go through them. so.
Right.
So there's a lot of items on there that may stay on there for years and never get addressed,
Yeah.
but they still stay on there because the motors are more important than my truck.
Right. I understand. So that'll be part of our review too, just to confirm that this year's request with what has been requested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, new business. Brian, you got a call from someone about,
Yeah, so Dawn Horahan, the associate member who lives down the South River, called me during one of those windstorms we had in, I think it was October. So there was a dock floating around the South River. So, and I remember when we talked about, when we were redoing the mooring regulations, it was one of the items that he brought up of having a name, making it a requirement to have people put the name placards on the docks. Most of the offenders that tend to break loose are the Chapter 91 docks that are in the middle of the river, the people, tie the boat up to and then take their dinghy out to, and it's a platform to hop off your dinghy onto the
The
dock.
chapter 91 or 10A float?
I'm sorry, tenant.
Yeah.
So I think when you send out the permits or when people apply for their permits, it's a yearly permit that you issue.
It's a mooring permit, yeah.
But I think it's a 10A that,
Well, just so everybody knows, a chapter 91, section 10A is a mooring. It's a bottom anchored, it can have a float, it's just, a part of it.
It's
And
my
I've been
understanding-
asking,
it's my understanding
people
that it's the harbor master's discretion.
it is,
If you can have a float on it.
correct. And I've been asking, or I'm asking to have the placard put on so we can identify it. When a chapter 91 licensed dock comes in, before I'll approve it, I require that on all the floats and on the ramp and the outermost piling, the street address is put on so that if something breaks free and ends up in the marsh or down the river, we can get a hold of the homeowner. And that's what I'm trying to do with the 10A float people as well.
Yeah, I just think you need to put it in, anybody's got a 10A, just put it in there. I think it needs to be somewhat permanent, so it's not, so it can't either fall off or be taken off,
Yeah.
be either vandalized. But it is a problem. I mean, in the winter, everything ends up, not everything, but some end up, people don't realize, and either they break off of their mooring if somebody doesn't take care of it.
No, I know it is a problem because I ran into the same problem, and this is how we rectified it where I came from. Just, required them to identify it. And we just asked for the simple plastic placard like you'd have on an inflatable, nail it to it, and just have it say 10A, and then the mooring number, and then we know what it is. But I may have them write, like S10A, for Scituate, just so they're not confused with Marshfield.
What happens when they do break loose?
And you call the mooring holder and tell him he has to,
Hire somebody to retrieve it.
hire somebody to retrieve it.
Well, what happens when they break loose? They end up in Marshfield, because it's usually northeast winds. But,
Or Eric's end up out to sea.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and it's not just the South River thing, I'm sure it's a
It's a
North
north,
River thing.
it's wherever there's 10A flow.
Yeah, and, people tying up in pot wop or whatever, and
Yeah.
it just doesn't,
It's-
sometimes they don't stay where they're supposed to.
No.
So if they're afloat and they're a mooring, so they have a mooring permit, mooring number, whatever,
Yeah.
they
it's
should?
It's a 10A float.
Right.
It's a very specific mooring.
So-
Or a very
and
specific
some of
type
them
of
aren't
mooring.
tagged at all, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Some of them have no
Just like
identification,
when-
and they may not even be
Out
legitimate.
here, some of the mooring balls have no identification
What
at all.
about the floats that they actually use when they put two boats on a mooring, like Rope Marine does? There'll be a float with a fore and aft mooring, and they tie a boat on each side.
Yes.
Is that a 10A? They
That's
consider it
10A.
10A?
Yeah, Mark, that's a 10A marina.
And so all of those, I assume all of those would be,
It's one mooring permit. I believe it's one mooring permit with a number of floats on, a number of boats allowed on it.
so one mooring with two 30-foot boats only pays for 30-foot boat?
Should pay for
No,
60
they
feet.
pay for they do.
Steve,
And they
Steve
pay-
corrected that.
And they pay individual waterways maintenance fees as well.
So when you go past, I'm 90% sure it's Scituate, past Mary's or past Rhodes, you make the, that big concrete thing, and you make the left-hand turn up the river. There's 2 or 3 that have like maybe 60-foot floats in the river off their own pier. Are
That would
those-
be a Chapter 91 licensed dock, probably.
okay.
Is it in the middle of the?
No, it's in the middle. It's about 50 feet or 50 feet off there.
It still could be a Chapter 91 licensed dock.
It's part of their dock.
Right, but that's.
No, it's not connected
No,
with the
it's not
gateway.
connected
It's
with the
floating in
gateway.
the middle of the
Oh, it's a
river.
float.
Yeah, but it's like 5 or 6 20-foot.
Yeah, those would be rope marines.
No, pass road. I'm
Yeah,
talking about half a mile
that
pass road.
might be in Norwell.
That's normal, anything
Is
past.
that Norwell?
yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
where the, I don't know the
Yeah,
line.
it's, I don't know exactly where it is, but it's
I got
close.
enough problems, I don't need to worry about
No.
no one's problems.
But that would be, that's a
Yeah.
10A float.
Okay, yeah.
So, and it would, and do you permit whatever boat is on it? You don't permit the dock footage?
We permit, like a section. So he's allowed to have X number of boat, or it's X number of feet of dock is what I believe is what they're built for. And then each section, each side, it's 125 for this side, 125 for this side, 125 for this side, and going up the floats. Because they're on average about 20-foot boats, 22-foot boats, something like that.
So we are in the process of identifying those floats on the South River, to your point.
Both rivers.
Both.
Both rivers.
All 10A,
Hey,
all
hey.
10A.
All 10As, out
Yeah.
here, out there,
Yeah.
everywhere.
Okay, Don will be happy.
Yes.
Okay, I put this consultant's report, the follow-up on the slip fees, because we've never really discussed it. I don't know if we want to discuss it now, but I thought I'd bring it up anyway. The consultant recommended that we raise the rates over a couple of years. He proposed they should probably be. I think we ought to just keep it in mind as far as the South River thing, if we're gonna need funds, if we have to pay for it. It might be the time to raise this. I just want to throw it out. If anybody has something to say about it.
I have difficulty talking about it back to, probably 10 meetings ago when I started talking about getting a hold of the Waterways financials, not knowing exactly where we are. Like, even what this year's net will be to capital, to retained earnings.
So why don't we look at you guys, once you've got some kind of results?
It's not gonna be able to be changed this way, this year anyways, because I've already sent out the deposit, people have
Right.
already committed
Yeah.
and
To a fee or.
into a fee.
Right.
In my opinion, it wouldn't necessarily be right to, you know,
No, that's right.
I don't
That's
think
fine,
it's-
but.
you could, but it,
But the only thing is, now is the time to start talking about it.
correct. No,
That's okay.
that's fine, but I just don't think it would be right to, you
Change
know,
Right, and
change it.
It should be tied to, obviously, improvements that some of them are incorporated in your capital plan
Yeah,
for the,
Right.
for both the Cole Parkway and Marina.
Well, remember that the slip fees, the beneficiary of most of the work that Steve's doing at Cole Parkway is almost exclusively to the slip holders, as opposed to, say, the mooring holders.
What exactly are you speaking of, Mike?
The pile driving and
So what's the benefit that they get?
The benefit to the marina customers?
No, sure.
Securing the marina.
But that's an assumption when you pay for your slip fees, right? That the marina's gonna be there. What I'm talking about is, obviously, there's going to be some improvements that have to be done over time, and the increases should be tied to that, whether it's better,
No, I think he
Well,
was
that's
just
what-
saying the betterment goes, you know, the people that realize the betterment to the marina, the new pilings, are the slip patrons,
not the mooring.
not
You're right.
necessarily mooring
I mean,
patrons.
you have deferred maintenance on your electrical system, you've had the docks or the main floats are
Right,
Yeah.
main
in
floats are getting ready.
disrepair. You have a lot of things to put on.
Even the docks themselves are, you know, we lift them up, we move them around, they're rotting, they're
Yeah,
problematic.
and well before your time, but somebody got rid of the third shift, of security because of a budget cut. And that, still, I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, just the fact that there was a third shift, there was a night watchman
that's
and a
great.
patrolman.
That's a benefit to the people.
To everybody.
obviously, in the-
No,
in the marina, right?
and so someone would say, well, there's only one guy and if he's over here, but the deterrent to crime is great because,
Sure.
and then also public safety because somebody's patrolling.
There was a marina
And
in,
that, I agree, is a real benefit to
there was
it.
a marina in Mashpee that they just went in and took every piece of garment equipment that was
Yeah.
on every boat.
I mean, yeah.
There might be
Just wipe them out.
justification for talking about an increase, but we also
Right.
just last year increased revenues by $75,000 because of the new waterways usage fee to all the mooring holders. So again, we need an analysis to figure, and again, for 10 years or 12 years, wherever everybody said the rate hasn't been increased, lumber's increased. If you're going to replace a dock, it's going to be more now than it was 10 years ago. Absolutely. Rates have got,
Right, but one of the things you could
marina's gone up.
look to on the finance side is if the betterment is predominantly going to the slip holders, you could also look at reducing the waterways usage fee to either overall or to the,
You just do it overall to, you know.
yeah.
But if we have new capital expenses coming up that need to be funded, and, we can differentiate, but, who is if the waterways ends up funding the dredging,
Right.
who is that gonna benefit? Just people in the South River, or fishermen, or if you're a sailboat, holding? I don't think you can really differentiate who benefits to determine who pays more.
Yeah, I mean, the person who benefits the most part from dredging in the South River would be the people
People
who
in
own
the-
marinas down there.
Yeah.
Right, right.
So, but having healthy marinas and healthy boatyards in
That's
town.
Also-
Helps everybody.
Also drive economy.
Right, well, the
In
thing,
situ.
Well, I'm into making it complete, whether
You know,
we
right, but
increase
the thing you
rates.
don't, as a marina owner,
Yeah,
I'll tell you what drives it is that the taxes that I pay. Okay?
drives
So-
your cost, your pricing.
No, I'm saying, you're saying who gets the benefit? Well, those people that own the marinas in the South River pay a hell of a lot of money in property taxes.
I'm more into combining, if there's a reason to raise rates, any rate, then everybody's rates should go up, not just the rates for the slip holders, if it can be justified.
No, he doesn't mean yours, he means.
I don't mean yours,
more,
I'm
as it
talking
said.
about waterways.
Well, mooring,
Yeah.
you have to be careful on raising mooring rates, all right? There's laws and regulations that have to do with mooring rates.
The mooring rates are regulated, or the moorings are regulated by the state.
By the state.
The marina is a town.
When's the last time we changed the mooring rate?
2 years ago.
How many?
2 years ago.
From
What?
what? By charging the charging the waterways fee?
Yeah.
Is that what we
Yes,
did?
Yes.
So did that have to go through permitting? You know,
No, that's different. It doesn't have to go through permitting.
No,
It
you're right.
just has to be, mooring rates are based on what it costs to administer moorings. That's, you know,
It's
I
not
can,
supposed to be a profit generator.
it's supposed to,
this whole department is not a profit generator. It's supposed to be a zero-sum
But-
game.
but the, you know, to go to, let's say, $12 a foot for mooring,
Right.
you may get pushback because it doesn't cost us that much money to administer moorings. It's supposed to be based on what it costs to administer
But you
moorings.
need a new boat. Is that
It has nothing
involved?
to do with mooring rates.
Right. The problem,
That has nothing to do with mooring rates.
right. The problem, David, is that moorings are exclusively.
And I'm not saying that you couldn't raise the waterways user maintenance fee. You could do that. It's the mooring rate itself. You gotta be careful that's why everybody's at $6 and $8.
Right.
They're all and it's not because they couldn't get more for them everywhere. It's, you know, if they're allowed, you know.
Well,
Yeah.
the harbor master's acting as an agent to the state. It's power that the state gave the town to administer the moorings. It's state water. So they're obviously saying it's a public access issue and they want people to have access to the water.
I can bring
Not
in
be cost prohibitive.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
All right, and it's pretty clear what it's supposed to be for.
I mean, obviously, I'm just looking at the business of running the
Right.
water.
And like I said, you could go up on that,
Department.
Yeah.
you could go up on that,
You could also go
Maintenance
and
fee.
charge market rate at the town marina for what they charge next door, but that kind of takes away, if you're just looking at running a business, which you can't look at it that way, you have to look at it as it's amenity to the town, but still, there's an argument to be made of raising the rates a little bit, but not running it like a business.
Right.
No, I mean, the
So-
business of running this is not to maximize revenue. It's to generate the revenue it takes to run the entire waterways department, which includes the harbor master's office, all his boats, all his fuel, all his expenses,
Right.
which
Correct.
include monitoring the harbor, which the mooring holders get benefit of.
But Dave, let me ask you a
Yeah.
question. What if the government started a pressure washing business?
Yeah.
And they didn't pay taxes,
Yeah.
and they didn't pay property taxes, and they didn't pay the other stuff?
Right.
And they
Their rates
undercut
would be
you
low.
by 60%.
Right.
How would you feel about that?
I would feel horrible, but that's the
That's-
reason why we should have never had this marina here.
But that's the issue with marina owners. The average slip for a public marina in Scituate is $100 a foot. And for a private marina, it's about $200 a foot.
I understand that.
It should go up. It doesn't have to go up to market, but there is no reason that in the 10 to 15 years that it has never gone up,
Well,
because the costs have gone up.
I agree, but we have to look at the financials of it, because again, they may, based on the revenue we're taking in and the amount of money we should be putting away for his capital expenditures, the transfer station is a zero-sum game, this is a zero-sum game, you have to charge what it takes to run the thing.
Absolutely. Have you been on the docks in Cole Parkway?
We're walking, and they're
They-
in deplorable
Aren't we
shape.
saying the same thing,
Yeah.
that obviously
We're
any
agreeing.
increase is
Yeah.
tied to improvements?
Right.
Right, saying the same thing.
Right.
If I could intervene here, been explained to us many times, we're not here, we're not a for-profit. We're here to pay the expenses of what we have, which is a marina and a mooring field and a harbor master's office and patrol boats and personnel. We have retained earnings. We can't make $1 million or plus every year. Retained earnings is kind of it's a safety net for us, for things maybe like this dredging that's coming up. We've had 60 days that we've had the information from Nancy Holt. I think what we've got to do is, if you're gonna review that stuff, we'll review that, get an idea where that's coming from. Then we can all talk a little more intelligently about
The
about what we're talking
possibility of
about.
raising or reducing or whatever.
Yeah, because we're a little bit unique compared to a lot of other towns. We have a marina, 2 marinas. So there's a lot more income and expense as opposed to Cohasset, who has, you know, a single harbor master and 300 moorings, and they go out right around every day, and it takes 3 minutes to do it.
Yeah.
So I think if we can get involved with this, it's not old information yet, but like I said, it's a couple of months old already now, and we haven't really even started. So if we can start and get something done, we might get a much brighter
We'll have a
picture.
better feel.
That's how I feel about it.
Sounds good.
I mean, we can argue all night long, and we got good sources. I mean, we have
I
private
wasn't
marinas
trying to
versus.
argue, I was just trying to.
Yeah.
No, I mean, these are.
You know, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, but you also have to remember that
It's still early.
a lot of
Right.
a lot of the expenses that a private company has are not borne by the town.
I understand, and that's why, by definition, it's gonna be lower rates. And we only have to charge what we need to charge.
Right, but let's say you own the grocery store in town, would you like it if the town started selling
I
milk at a
wouldn't.
discount?
I wouldn't like it.
Okay.
But it's not gonna be changed, so it's a matter of.
No, but you could, you know, better the amenities. You
Right.
could better the bathrooms, you could better the docks themselves.
We've been talking about having 24-hour access through the side of the building, redoing the bathrooms, there's
You
all
know, to
these.
bring the bathrooms up to, you know.
ADA compliant.
ADA compliance rather than from you know, they were great for 1984, but it would be nice if you could actually go into a bathroom and
That should
changing
be a capital
room
plan item that we.
with a sink, and you didn't have just everybody
Yeah.
standing with you.
And
like
those are
brush your
legitimate
teeth.
capital plan requests that we have to fund.
Yeah.
I agree.
Correct. Are any of those,
You have other people there, they help you put the
none of those
toilets
in
in.
the plan?
I don't know, so Stephen, that, what you just mentioned, improving the bathroom, is that on your capital plan?
Yeah.
Okay, and
Yes.
so, and
That's what,
good.
the-
Yeah,
you know, that I put on to have an architect review the harbor master's building.
right,
So,
it's mostly the
It-
bathrooms,
it's-
That was at $75,000.
yeah,
yeah.
to review that, he comes back with a plan, and then, you know, we go from there.
All right,
That's good.
something to aim for in January.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I brought it up.
And maybe
because
someday I'll
few
get a
people
truck.
have asked about it, but it's something I think we can't do anything this year, but we're gonna have to look at it at some point in time, based on what you guys come up with. Discussion, I threw that in there only because I didn't know what we're gonna,
We've had enough,
what's that?
we've had enough.
We've had enough, so, we'll
Don't,
go back up to item 5, which is election of the Waters Commission Chairman, is the last item.
I nominate Fran to have another year as chair.
I thought that, before anyone seconds it, just a point of where I thought you wanted to just stay through May, or is this now for another year? Or is it backdated to May?
I'm done as far as the waterways.
Whenever he'd be done whenever he gets reappointed.
Whenever his
But-
term expires,
Yeah.
which is May?
Yeah, and I think someone else should probably take it then.
Okay, so it's to be
Or-
chairman through
The
the May
remainder of
meeting,
his term.
right?
I would say, and this isn't I would say when Fran's term will be up when the selectmen appoint a new board, which I believe it's supposed to be in May.
Correct.
But I think it's slipped until
August.
August or September, and I don't wanna.
The past couple of years, it seems that way, Sean?
Yeah, it's been getting a little bit, yeah, it used to be June, and all the committees and commissions were reorganized.
So if we left it open-ended to whenever the new,
Whenever the next board is appointed, because then,
Or until a successor is named.
yeah, and then the reason why I say do that is because if you have, you don't wanna have a board short people, and then also you don't wanna, when the new board members get appointed, you want them to
correct?
have a vote into the chair. So that's my thought on it,
Okay, so we modify the motion to be,
until a successor is named.
correct?
We could, I mean, next meeting, somebody could put it on the agenda and have a vote and oust them, I guess. But
Sure.
We're gonna have a coup?
We could.
We
sure.
could.
I might start.
Thanks, Stephen.
Then again, we could all have a,
So for whose current term until successor is
we could have
named?
a reverse coup and appoint you chair and
And torment you?
everybody take a step back.
My first rule will be to appoint you as the new chair.
I second that.
Returning
motion.
chair.
I second
Second.
that motion.
Okay,
So do we have to do a public vote?
We
Yes.
had
Yes.
to
Yes. Has to be
public vote.
public.
Discussion, it would be discussion and then a vote, so.
Okay.
Any discussion?
any discussion?
Just one point here, where is this on the agenda for tonight?
It was
It
number,
was number 5.
yeah, it got
It was actually,
Howie, you called and asked me for a copy of the agenda. It was in town hall. That's the one that I sent to these people, and I
Just
sent
got emailed.
you a copy of that. It hadn't been finalized. So the final posted agenda at town hall had that as an item
number
on it.
5.
Was that revised? Was it-
right here.
It didn't have to be revised. What I sent you was just information for yourself. We hadn't finished putting the agenda together. So that was,
This is the agenda.
this is the agenda. This is how it was posted.
This is the one I got from town hall that they emailed me.
If you clicked on the link, it is posted publicly.
I only gave you that, Howie, because you're looking for something at the time. That's all.
Quickly, I just want to see if there's something else that can be for itself.
I'll make sure.
PDF
All right,
that he just gave you.
Okay, our next meeting is gonna,
all in favor?
all in favor?
All right,
Aye.
this is voting for Fran, but you
Yeah.
can check
Yeah.
the successors name.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Present. He's voting present,
Okay,
which means he's not voting.
get that? Abstain, debate.
I abstained as well, so.
Stephen and David.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you only need to
This
read.
isn't Excel, you want to achieve a shot?
Okay, we are not gonna be here next week, next month. We're gonna be at NOAA, but we'll finalize it.
With
Oh,
Anthony.
this, back there.
Email me back.
Tell us.
Good evening. Phyllis Carroll, Sue's Road. I just, it's a sad event, but it was a wonderful tribute to
Fred Doffney.
Fred Doffney, to see so many of the harbor community folks pay tribute to him tonight. And it really was pretty impressive.
It was.
But that's what this harbor has been about for the last 50 years. And it really was, it was nostalgic to me. This was Scituate, the turnout that was out there for him.
They had a great turnout.
And it's always been a harbor like this, you know, that you kind of fend for each other, you know, and back them up. And I thought it was pretty impressive and it should be, you know.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
folks.
you.
Motion to adjourn? Second. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Aye.